For electric vehicles to truly be adopted on a wider scale, they need to tick off a few boxes. For one, they need to be aptly priced. They can't be very, very expensive compared to petrol vehicles or diesel vehicles because people just won't pay for them in the long run. The second point is availability of charging points and what those vehicles truly have to offer. As of today, as of now, even as we look at how the EV space is developing in India, at the forefront are undoubtedly two-wheelers. There are more options in the market. These products have been there longer in the market and they're being adopted at a better pace as well. So before we move forward with our discussion, let's bring you this comparison between two-wheelers in the EV space and a regular petrol two-wheeler that is being reported on by my colleague Utkarsh Chaturvedi.
Well, you're planning to buy a scooter but are kind of confused that should you go for the new gen EVs or the legacy petrol scooters. We can help you out in some or the other way. Now let's start with the comparison in terms of pricing. Now in terms of pricing, the petrol scooter will cost you around 75,000, which is much cheaper than an electric scooter, which is around 1,20,000. But that cost can be redeemed. How? Let's look at per kilometer running cost. Let's look at petrol first. Now a petrol vehicle, a petrol cost is 100 rupees per litre. The range, which is the average, is around 40 kilometers. The efficiency comes at 2.5 rupees per kilometer, and this will dramatically change when you move to the EVs. Now, if you look at EVs, a full charge is around 4 units of electricity. The electricity charge is rupees 15 per unit. That's the BMC rate of fast chargers which they'll be installing. The total expense for a full charge is 60 rupees. The range, however, the companies are claiming 180, we're going with 150. The efficiency still comes to 0.40 per kilometer. Now, compare this, a 2.5 per kilometer, 0.40 per kilometer. And if you drive a lot, then you might really make up for the extra cost you're giving. The other things, however, are the fact that you do not have the infrastructure ready. You might have to be disciplined to charge your scooter every night. On the other hand, if you want to go for a longer drive in a scooter, that can be one thing, which you can do in a petrol scooter. In an electric vehicle, you might have to stop because, as I said, the infrastructure is not ready. But in the end, they've given you the options. The choice is finally yours.
So will that differential, will that gap finally narrow? Because that truly is when people will start adopting electric vehicles. Of course, the sky-high prices of petrol continue to help people's push in that direction. But charging needs to be more convenient. There are a lot of other factors. To speak more on this, I'm joined now by Rajat Mahajan, partner of Deloitte India. Vinkesh Gulati, president at FADA, is joining us on the show this evening, as is Gaurav Vangaal, associate director LV forecasting at IHS Markit. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us today. Mr. Gulati, let me begin with your overview. The topic we've chosen is more adoption of electric vehicles in 2022. Are you largely bullish on this? Have you seen that widespread of adoption so far at the dealer level? Because that's where it really matters. Are people coming up and asking for electric vehicles?
So thanks for having me. No doubt, I cannot say it is bullish, but we are getting a lot of inquiries at our dealership. But the conversions are very bad in electric vehicle segment. So because there are a lot of inquisitiveness to know what's the range, what's the price, and once the customer knows the detail about the price gap between ICE and an electric vehicle, and then an issue of range anxiety comes in, he delays the decision. So no doubt the hype is there, and the latest push by Ola, Tesla coming in, the news going out, a lot of things, government pushing in. So that hype has created, the customers have started asking about electric vehicle, but yes, conversions are not as compared to what we are seeing in ICE as of today.
You know, that is a very, very important point, because it's telling me two things. One, that there is interest, but the product is not satisfying what the customer's needs are. Gaurav, you want to come in on that? That really is the question mark, right? Will that gap be closed, and how large and how wide is that gap right now?
I think the gap is very wide. Companies are working to increase the range and to avoid this range anxiety for the consumers. But when we see the market, the overall market, whether it is a two-wheeler or whether it is a four-wheeler, the current penetration is less than 0.5%. We sell approximately 15 million two-wheeler in this market, and we sell approximately 4 million cars or LV light vehicles in the market. But the penetration is very low. But it does not mean that EV is not going to come. This transformation is inevitable. It is going to happen, but it is going to take time. Companies are working. I think if we name it, Maruti Suzuki, Tata Motors, Hyundai, Kia, Mahindra, everybody is working on it. The major aspect, how to reach the economies of scale and how to make it affordable for the consumer. The gap is high, but what we are expecting that we need to bridge it up. Then the bridging it up is what we are expecting that hybrid should come into the play. Meanwhile, for the midterm, then EV will definitely kick off. It is inevitable. It is going to happen in the long term.
That's an interesting point because, for example, Maruti, the largest car maker, is betting on hybrids. They don't think that the EV boom is going to happen anytime soon. Mr. Mahajan, would you agree with that point of view, or do you think that this coming year will really be the pivot as investments pour in? We've seen that Collier's report today, which talks about massive investments over the next 5 years. You have many states which are putting their money where their mouth is. Do you think all of that will change the scenario, especially as new products start to hit the market?
First of all, thanks for having me on the show. I think I kind of agree with Vinkesh, on one part for sure. There is a lot of interest. People are asking about EVs. They are inquisitive. They are wanting to get educated on it. As per one of our recent surveys that we had conducted, the consumer sentiments are at a decently, high level compared to the last 18 to 24 months. And some statistics around 80% of the consumers are expected to buy a new car or a new vehicle. Okay. Now, having said that, at the end of the day, four-wheelers may take time, obviously, but two-wheelers may drive a significant change in the next year. And we are seeing that with the new launches, which is pretty evident with all the big players in the market, including startups, who have planned their new launches in the early part of 2022. So it is going to be an exciting year ahead, honestly.
Okay, so Vinkesh, tell me about this. As new launches come in, and we have a list of how all of the companies are planning, not just in next year, by the next few years actually. So you have Tata Motors planning 10 EVs by 2025. You have M&M launching 16 vehicles by 2027. Hyundai is planning to launch 6 EVs by 2028. Kia is planning to launch another 7 by 2027. So you have now in the next few years, the market is going to be much more vibrant. Do you think it will take that much more time, or will you see an uptick continuing in the next year as well?
Yeah, I don't want to be negative at this point, but the time frame what you are talking, all these companies have already launched so many products in the past. So you are talking of Mahindra, they have launched in last 5 years, some 10, 12 products. So they are committing another 10, 12 in the coming 5 years for EV. So it is happening. For the past 3 years, there had been 20 plus launches. Past 2 years, there has been 20 plus launches in the car market, and those were majorly ICE. So launch of the product is not important as of now. No doubt it will create an interest in the market, will create an interest in the customer to come out and check the vehicle, which is already there in EV. What majority is, what is important today is to bridge the gap, what you asked, Gaurav. So if a customer wants to buy a car from a dealer and he comes in for the same ICE vehicle, he has to pay 10 lakh rupees. And for an EV vehicle, he has to pay around 13 and 14 lakh rupees. And then obviously with that, he has to have to go through with that range anxiety. No doubt if we say that ARI norms are 250, but this is not petrol. ARI norms are 21 and giving 12. Not an issue. You can have a petrol pump just another 100 meters. So the range anxiety also kicks in. So no doubt the coming 5-7 years launches, what you have said, it would be more. But I feel the market will mature faster towards greener energy. It will not be only EV. Like Maruti is talking of hybrid, Toyota is talking of hydrogen. Reliance Energy is working on hydrogen-based parts to be supplied to all the OEMs. So, anything to say today? Is it the influx for the electric vehicle market in the future? It could be, yes, but maybe in 3 years' time the influx would be for hydrogen or some other energy. So this is clear that the disruption is there, the market is shifting, but Indian economy, Indian customers are not easily open to accept such big price gaps, such big issues when they have to decide to buy a vehicle from an hard-earned money. And you should also consider that uh, buying a vehicle is the second most purchase for an Indian human being after his home purchase. So for such an important purchase where the full family is involved, the hype or the government push towards an energy regime would not help. It has to be viable, it has to be economical, and it has to be acceptable to him to at least see these boom. So like Gaurav said, 0.5%. So maybe if I shift towards commercial three-wheeler, we are already seeing 40% plus electric vehicle being sold as of today, because that is controlled by a permit which is government controlled. You will see commercial vehicle buses also shifting to CNG and electric vehicle. But as you talk of two-wheeler and cars, which is a private use vehicle, it has to actually please to the customer who is buying. Their government's control will not work. So I feel we still have to wait, and maybe till the time EV comes over, something another will also crop up.
You know, the price differential is the big hitch. And Rajat, I want to come to you here because a lot of states over this year announced incentive programs, but they didn't seem to make a big impact, did it? And why is that? Is that because of the limitations of those incentives? Do they translate into very little? The caps that were put in place? What do you think is the problem there?
So incentives, I think the government is doing its bit. It's not only the government, right? I mean, while on the one hand, central government through the FAME subsidies and the state governments with various other incentives, it's also important for us to understand what the consumer is thinking, all right? Because for the consumer, there are things like premium pricing. Now, especially in case of two-wheelers, right, the price gap has been reduced to close to 15 to 20% compared to earlier. So that's a tick mark. Range anxiety definitely exists, but probably not that much in the urban areas compared to the rural areas, right? Because whether it is the local student usage or the daily commute or daily needs or e-commerce, hyper local deliveries, these organizations, these people are adopting. So range anxiety in the urban areas probably not that a great concern. However, there is definitely certain issues with respect to which were there, but now a lot of banks and NBFC have come forward and they have started financing these vehicles as well. Earlier, that used to be a bit of a concern where, not too many players were doing it. So I think, in a nutshell, it's not only the government, but the OEMs also need to do a lot. And we are expecting that the OEMs with all the new launches that are planned in the coming few years will generate a lot of awareness in the market for the consumer, so that all these anxieties, right? I mean, how do they live with these anxieties, understand and adopt? So this would be a game which has to be played by both government as well as the OEMs and the other ecosystem players.
Yeah, but the question is that in the middle of this waiting game, who is going to ensure that electric vehicles don't cost too much more? I want to come to you, Gaurav, on the price gap question. On the other hand, we keep speaking about, how can you charge them? Is it convenient? So the convenience is one side of it. But the price gap is the big deterrent, isn't it?
Tamanna, the price gap is a bit deterrent, and what we understand, from the Indian market, that car makers are already working to reduce these price gaps. Today, we may find vehicles above 10 lakh rupees, 14 lakh rupees for the starting point for the EVs. But the car makers are already targeting sub 10 lakh vehicles or 8 lakh vehicles INR in Indian market. So that is what they also understand. They also believe that the Indian consumer is a value conscious. They may not like to jump to EVs before it fits their bill, right? So we believe that it is going to come down, but it will going to take time. Meanwhile, I think there are alternate powertrain options are available, which are going to come through also, like a flex fuel. Government is already working on the ethanol, right? First, so second, the CNG penetration is going to increase. Because we are getting hurt by the petrol prices, high petrol prices right now. So consumers are shifting very rapidly to the CNG, and they are keen to reduce, to keep check on their budgets, whatever they are spending on the fuel consumption.
Yeah, so it's going to be the long haul, maybe not a big jump in 2022, but we're definitely getting there. EVs, hybrid fuel, clean fuel and cleaner cars is going to be the buzzword. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on this discussion this evening.